Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Power Nap Live. This is Dr. Erin Wilson, and I'm here with no one else but my co-hostess with the mostest, Dr. K. And I can't believe we're back for another Sunday, another power nap live. Whatever the case is, I am super glad to be here. So I always start out asking you, how you doing?
Yeah, trying to plug up so my stuff don't die off. I'm good. Outside of this crazy weather in North Carolina, it's 80 degrees, then it's pouring down raining, then it's 40 degrees, and now the sun I see is shining a little bit more today. So it's all the seasons. We get all the seasons. But other than that, I'm doing well. It's April.
It's April. That's what keeps having me shook, is that it's April. I feel like we just kicked off a new year. Like I was just like, oh, what are my quarter one goals? And now it's already like I'm already talking to clients and stuff about fall things and like next year. And so I'm like, it's just wild. I don't know what it is. Like as you get older, it just seems like the time flies even faster. And so I'm nervous about that piece. I'm grateful for the opportunity, I guess, to have time, but it's kind of like it's so limited, which is why we talk to people about rest. This week for me was such a cool week. Okay, so I had an experience. I think I shared a little bit with you, but I was like, "Ooh, let's wait," because I'll talk to you about it on the show. But this week was so cool for me. So I had a speaking engagement, of course. That's how I make those chochos. Okay. Doing training. I have to shout out my sister-in-law. She likes to say chocho, and I think that word is so funny for money. And so now I say it all the time. But anyway, whatever the case is, I had a speaking engagement this week, and it was to some phenomenal women, about 200 phenomenal women. We're all in one room, getting ready for the leadership roles that they'll assume in the organization that they're in for junior league. And I was doing this session, and it was just, the energy was phenomenal, right? So at the end of the session, all of them stand up and give this huge standing ovation, right? Which was cool. I felt so good and so reassuring that I'm walking in my like purpose and doing the work that I'm called to do. But what really made my entire life, I tell you, there's always those moments that are core memories. And this one for me will be a core memory forever. I walk out because, of course, after the session, well, not after the session, but after my talk, they still wanted to do a couple of housekeeping pieces with the women before they were able to go home. So I, of course, was sweating, and I knew people would walk up to me afterwards. So I had to go fix my makeup. Okay. You can't catch me slipping out there in these streets without the lips looking right. Okay. So I, slip out to run to the restroom to go fix my makeup and stuff. And standing outside of the hall that we were in, the banquet hall we were in, was this group of folks who had done the banquet staff, the servers who had brought food in and who had cleaned off tables and done different things. And each of them looked at me, a group of, I want to say at least 7 or 8 of them, and was like, oh my goodness, your session was so good. Like, we have to buy your book. And I just was like, what in the world? So I used to work in hospitality, and most of the time the banquet staff is not thinking about what's going on in the room. They just trying to get their stuff done so that the moment somebody says they can go, they can get out of there. So to know that instead of doing what they were needing to do in order to just leave, you just kind of never know who's watching you, right? And to me, that's why it's so important that leaders model rest, right? Because you never know who's gleaning from that order to use that to improve their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, the blessing the um the blessing is always in the hallways.
Oh, not always in the hallway now.
It's in the hallways, in the room there, there's blessings in the room, don't get me wrong, but those unexpected blessings are in the hallways. I remember I had did a workshop, and the tech people
Yeah.
usually stay in there, and I had a tech person that stayed in mine, and at the end I'm wrapping up, I'm trying to get out and head on back down the road, and he stops and he says, "You do this like all the time?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He was like, I'm glad I stayed in here. I'm glad I was the tech person that was in here because I needed that. And it led to conversations of purpose, coaching, etc. And so it just reminded me how often we are always focused on the people in front of us rather than the audience.
Mm.
And the audience sometimes is not the people right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, again, it's the hallway blessings that I get excited for, right? Because sometimes, depending on the space in the room you in, it's too crowded to shout. And if you shout enough, you'll shout yourself into the hallway where people are walking and running and zipping and zapping, right? And
Mm-hmm.
not focused on what's going on, but because of the experience that they heard, and now it's in the hallway, you have captured more of your audience and not just your quote unquote target audience. So I love that.
Absolutely. I love that too. It also, to me, talks about proximity. So often we feel like we have to be in the room to get what we need, right? But like some of us need to, even when it comes to rest, some of us need to just be pressing up against the door in the hallway, right? Sometimes we just need to be close to what we are trying to do. I was so inspired this week, which is so funny. But I was really inspired by a video that I saw this week that Keke Palmer, we all know, it's so funny because Keke Palmer to me is still very young, but
Yeah.
like they always are like Auntie Keke Palmer. She can't be more than like early 30s. I'm not, whatever the case is, she does give like auntie energy and it cracks me up. Right now she is just in such a fantastic place. She's written a wonderful book. You can see motherhood is just like really looking so good on her. But one of the things that I saw this week was a video of her kind of talking about how she was doing things until the things that people saw of value started to happen, right? And so even for us, this for us is kind of to me that moment, right? Where you have to decide at some point, the same way with rest, that it is going to be something that you prioritize. And there may not be a table for you to sit at, but sometimes you have to create your own table. So she was talking about how, and anybody who's kind of followed her career a little bit can probably remember how she did a lot of social media stuff. Some of the skits were funny, some of them weren't, right? But she was doing it because it's what she loved to do. And from that, she said, no matter what people thought about it, it ultimately ended up getting her on prime time, getting her an Emmy, doing all those things, because when there wasn't somebody asking her to do those things, she created space for herself to do it. Yeah. So that's my question to you this week. No one is going to drop rest into your lap. They're not. Most people are not going to say, hello, tap you on the shoulder and say, it's time for you to rest. Yeah. So what are you going to do to create intentionally those moments for you to grasp onto rest? Because it then creates a ripple effect in other places and spaces in your life, right? Yeah. Even if it's not gigantic, even if it's not a big commitment that you're making to rest, what are you committing to that will help you show up better later down the road? And that other people will see and maybe pull you into something else because they saw you being rested.
Yeah. So done it. I think, writing the book, the biggest piece is the summit, the Strategic Rest Summit is, taking everything that we've done in the book, but also the real life situations that we have going on, and bringing it together and say, hey, we want a group of about 30 people to join us, and have this real conversation, some interactive spaces, activities around this idea of what it means to rest in purpose, to rest for your legacy, right? And so, even going from a 3 day summit to a 1 day summit showcases the rest, right? Because oftentimes we see a vision, or what we believe to be the vision, and go in and say, this is what we're going to do, until someone, or something happens and say, hey, let me step back and get clarity on this. And that clarity led to, hey, you don't need 3 days to get it right. As I tell folks, all I need is a good hour with you and we good. And so I think condensing it to 1 day affords people the opportunity, one, that they can rest the rest of the weekend, whatever that looks like, but come together with like-minded individuals such as ourselves that want to have this real conversation around it, that's going to elevate them. And I guarantee the people who choose them, who choose to prioritize themselves, and not just because we wrote the book and we're hosting the summit, but something tells me something powerful is going to happen within the summit for those who choose to invest in themselves, right?
Yeah.
For the small investment of $199 for VIP, $149 for essential, whatever case you choose, I guarantee there's going to be a return on that investment, right?
Mhm.
And I don't guarantee a lot of things, right? And so there's something that's happening, and I think with we're about a month away from the deadline of people being able to register. Something is happening right now in the spaces for people that they're looking for something, or they don't know what they're looking for, and the summit is going to be placed on their hearts. And it is my hope that they listen to their heart and come, because of the 30 people, something magical, something spiritual is going to happen to those people individually and collectively, for us to come together for a greater vision. I was doing reading today, and meditating, and just in conversation with God today, and one of the things that I wrote that came to me, was that your vision is connected to somebody else's waiting room.
Mm. Mm.
People are in a waiting season, and your vision gets them out of the waiting room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it hit me, and I was like, wait, hold on. What is this? Because been talking about a waiting room for a while now, and then connecting into vision is that if I don't carry out the vision, one, knowing that vision requires other people, right? But
Mhm.
if I don't carry it out, if I don't speak to it, there are people in the waiting room that would never get what they need because I'm not carrying out the vision.
Absolutely.
Which leads back to, somebody needs to be in the hallway to tell somebody, I see the vision that God has for you. Get on it. Because
Mm.
people are all here in the waiting room waiting for you and don't
Yes.
even know it.
Absolutely. They're waiting for you. I mean, I just think about like I said, in that situation, had I not, because there were moments before I decided to jump into full-time entrepreneurship, you you have been in conversations with me where I was like, you know what? Oh, if I don't know if this is what I want. I know for sure this is not what I want. I know
Yeah.
for sure. I can tell people, I can look into this camera and tell y'all every day. Do I prefer that somebody was just handing me a check, if that makes sense, to do things that I was probably working at max 70% of my capability, and that was on really, really hard days?
Yeah.
There is not a time in my career that I can think of that I ever worked as hard as I do right now as a self-employed entrepreneur. Okay, never. And people loved the work that I did, but I never worked as hard as I work right now. However, that's what I was reminded of being in that room and having people who were outside of the room who would not have necessarily had proximity or reason to hear the message that I was telling people, which is about that you have unique strengths. How can you use those and then leverage rest in order to make the impact that you want? We If I had not been there, if I had not made choices, right, or done what I'm called to do, I wouldn't have been there for people to be able to hear that. And so alignment is so incredibly important. And rest to me is a huge strategy that allows you to be in alignment with what you're called to be doing.
Yeah, the scripture I was reading before I got on here was don't get me the line. Matthew 11, Matthew 11, 28, 30, where it talked about rest. Lay your burdens down. God is here, right? I'm gonna look it up to read it quote word for word. But in that, there's something about rest that disrupts what the devil wants to do in your life.
Ooh. It shakes down them weapons that are trying to prosper.
Yes. And when you're so comfortable in a space, and you can say, oh, it's not the devil, whatever you want to say, but rest disrupts that. It shakes things up. And people don't like things shaken up. They like them stirred. They like things to stir around. But when you shake something up like really good, it is so intertwined that I can't sleep. I can't eat without being rested. But when you just stir and rest in your situation, it's here or there. You may taste it, you may not. So I hope that people that are watching and listening to this is they get to a space where rest shakes up their life and not just stirs it up.
Oh, have mercy. When you said that, I think about salad, baby. There is nothing better than when you see these folks, when you ain't true to it, okay? Because I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I know I don't give an image of a woman who loves a good salad, because I don't, okay? Y'all can keep that rabbit food. I be trying. But let me tell you, to me, when you put the salad into a bowl, put the dressing on top of it, right? And when you shake it, it's something that changes the atmosphere of that salad, okay? Yeah. It's just like every nook and cranny of the salad is saturated with that dressing, which means every bite is delicious. So imagine your life as that salad. Right? Because you're right. I've seen people just squirt the dressing on, and you trying to mix it so you can get a piece with the dressing. But we're inviting you to a space of rest where every bite is permeated with rest.
Yeah.
Every piece of the salad that is your life can be permeated with rest, but instead y'all choosing to bite off the top of that little packet and just squirt it on. And that's a shame. That's a shame and a scandal, okay? Because listen, if I'm gonna get a salad, they need to give me 2 packs, which then don't make it happy. I mean, don't make it healthy no more, okay? So you should think about it. You don't even need, hold on. You don't even need as much dressing if you pour it in there and shake it up.
Yeah.
So you may not even need as much rest as you think you do if you let it permeate every nook and cranny of your life. Yeah. My God. Now I want a girl salad, a nasty, what that lady say, a chicken salad.
Yeah, and that, that's what we're doing. We're shaking things up for people. And so I think about, you talk about Keke Palmer's experience, and doing those things that brought her joy, passion, and people then was like, and now all of a sudden she got these awards, etc., and doing great things. That's how I look at what we've done and started to do with this idea, this concept of strategic rest. Is not everybody is going to clap, not everybody is going to like, subscribe, or run to get these tickets for the summit as soon as information goes out. Um, and part of it is, I think we've been stirring this idea
Mm.
of strategic rest.
Yeah.
And as God continues to work on us, and now we're in the space of it's time to shake it up.
Mm.
And when the
Mm.
shaking comes, the people will come,
Mm-hmm.
because the shaking is more aligned to the assignment, whereas the stirring is more aligned to the attachment of it, right?
Absolutely.
Because if I'm stirring, it's just the attachment of, I like a good salad, like a good drink. I like that I wrote a book and I'm an author, all these good things, and I can help people. But the shaking means I got to go through some things.
Mm.
I've gone through some things, the disappointment, the, oh, not many people are liking, not many people are buying the book, whatever the case may be. That's a shaking mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And two things happen when people are shaken. They either dissolve and say, you know what, I can't do this no more. I don't want to
Mm.
do this. Or they say,
Yeah.
you know what, there's some lessons in this. I'm gonna keep the shaking because something's on the other side. And I believe that is for us in this moment, and for the people that are watching, that will come to the summit, that read the book, that we're now elevated in a space of shaking up the atmosphere for rest. And so
Yes.
I looked up, so I can read that scripture I was talking about, Matthew 11:28 and 30, and from the NIV version. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give
Mm.
you rest.
Mm.
Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Mm.
That's a shaking of the spirit.
It's the gift for me of all. Here's the thing: as infinite as God is, right? All the things that He can give you, the fact that He sees rest as a gift should allow you to remember to prioritize it, right? I have some folks in the comments. The comments are popping today, and I appreciate that. We have someone that said, "Be mindful." Alicia Johnson, how good to see you. Said, "Be mindful of what's in the dressing," and that's what we're talking about. That's why we're not talking about any kind of rest. We're talking about strategic rest. She said, because the ingredients can be counterproductive if you're not careful, right? Because ultimately, a lot of times we find people who are trying to eat that salad to improve health, right? But if you
Mhm.
go and slather it with a bunch of ranch, like I like to do, okay, then that may be counterintuitive to what your goals are. So, really using the NAP framework will allow you to rest in ways that allow you to feel rejuvenated and not guilty about just downtime, right? Absolutely. Darisha, hi. She said that that's one of her favorite verses. To see everybody in the comments, good to see you today. Absolutely. Another piece that was really important to me, especially as we think about rest and people, was that not everybody is your audience.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, not every type of rest is going to work for you, right? And I don't even want to speak to people who are not our audience. That's fine. That's okay. I'm not upset about that. Like, it's I I appreciate you for just stopping by, beloved. Does that make sense? But I'm going to be here every Sunday that I'm supposed to be here for even the one person
Yeah.
who is standing in the back, who's just peeking, who's just opening the door to hear something that maybe they didn't even know they were supposed to hear, or not even in the proximity of hearing. Maybe they weren't even invited to the table, but they can hear from the hallway. And we
Yeah.
started in the hallway, right? And that's who we're here for. Those people will find us, and those people will understand why in this season they're being called to practice strategic rest. And
Yeah.
that's enough for me.
Because here's the thing about audiences and target. We say
Mm.
target audience in hopes that we do things according to that target we want to reach.
Mm.
But really, the audience is whoever shows up, whether they're within that target or not. And so, one of the things that I've learned earlier on in my speaking is that I may go in with the mindset of a target. But once I get there and I feel the room, it's whoever's in the room. The target goes out the window. And
Yep.
so for me, it's the audience, and the audience is the folks that show up. And oftentimes we are in spaces, at least my experience is that I prepare for a target audience that don't even show up. But the audience that shows up that I've never prepared for, but guess what? I was ready for them. And
Mm.
so without rest, there's limited readiness in the spirit to
Mm.
move when you're called to. And so when people come up to me afterwards, like, I remember you speaking something you said in halftime. I don't remember what I said because I'm operating in the spirit of rest and readiness. I'm ready
Yes.
for whatever audience God puts before me, even if they're not my target audience. So,
Mm.
from a lens of rest, it's important that in every aspect of my life, I show up rested and whatever that
Mm.
looks like. And so,
Mm.
this call for strategic rest for folks is to say, hey, you're missing opportunities because you're not prepared, you're not ready. And readiness is attached to rest.
And you have to be ready for shifts. You know what I'm saying? You got to be ready for ooh, to me, in order to be able to be shaken up, to me, something has to have rested first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm thinking about that little salad container, the little Mac shake salads. The salad is resting, right? And it will ultimately come back to rest. But in order for it to be in there, if the lettuce wasn't just resting there, it wouldn't be set up for us to shake it with the dressing. You know, I like to give mine a little help. Okay. But in order to do that, we have to lay the lettuce in there first.
Yeah.
The ingredients. Okay. If it's a little chicken tender for you, I understand it. If it's not, if you're on your vegan teas, I get that as well. But ultimately, absolutely, that rest is an incredibly important piece and step
Mm-hmm.
before you do that shake up. And oftentimes we're asking whoever it is, we're asking God, we're asking ourselves about shaking up things in our lives, but yet we're going in without even our lettuce resting in the bowl to be shaken up.
Yeah.
And we've got to understand that rest is not just a step, it's a strategy, it's
Mm-hmm.
a gift, and we need it in order to move to whatever the next level is for ourselves. It's just so important. Rest, especially practicing strategic rest, is so important to our mission and to our purpose, to our calling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, God put me in front of the audience. Don't put me in front of the target because
Yes.
if I'm choosing the target, I'm always fail.
Mm.
But if you put me in front of the audience, I will always be ready because I'm well rested and I trust him enough to be that way, right? And so,
Mm.
as I look at the people that are, listening and watching and chatting in the comments, I hope someone here somewhere there's an anointing um in the atmosphere. And this has been a week. Lord have mercy, it's been a week.
It
And
really has.
I started the week with coaching. I have a shout out to my coach Dane, who's out in California. We started this week and we did a grounding exercise where we meditated, and then at the end it's like, what's the word, rest in God, and what's the word that comes up. And the word that came up, it kept flickering like a light as I was meditating because I'm very visual, and I was like, and the word that came out of my mouth was resonance.
Mm.
The resonance with God. How am I hearing God deeply? Not just a
Mm.
surface level of hearing what he's saying about my vision and what it means to rest and what it means to show up in places, but deeply what that means. And part of what has come out of that is, God, allow me to move in spaces because of who you've created me to be, who I am, and not out of obligation of what people expect of me.
Mm. Ooh.
Because I'm rested. When you rested, you can think like that. And I
Yeah.
see most people unrested and operating out of obligation of the expectations that other people have for them, and dismiss or put on the back burner the vision God has given them.
Absolutely. And allowing visibility and 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 popularity, right? To kind of be the scale that they use for how well they're doing things. Listen, I had to go back to the comments real quick because folks are in there preaching, okay? Dr. Chambers said, in order for the dough to rise, you got to let it rest, okay? A bread ministry, you better give them carbs the praise, okay?
Life,
Give them
the
the
bread of
praise. Don't start. You know we too churchy for that. We're too oily for us to start bread of life talk. But yes, absolutely. In order for your dough to rise, that's a perfect place to rest. That's a perfect place to rest this show today. In order for your dough, all your dough, if it's your chocho, it may be your money, it may be physical food, it may be your life, but in order for dough to rise, you have to let it strategically rest, because you can let it rest outside and it won't do what it needs to do. You can let it rest out on the counter, and that may not be where that specific bread needs to be. It may need to be in a proofing drawer in order to do it. And so we have talked constantly about rest does look different for different people. So where does your dough need to be resting in order to rise?
And I
And so
know,
with that, yes, go ahead.
a good place to find out is June 7th in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Strategic Rest Summit. That is a perfect place to begin to find out where your dough needs to be, right? Or where you want your dough to rise and where you need to be rested for it to happen.
Absolutely. So as a reminder, because I see some people in the comments, like Erica already has her ticket. Let's see, I saw Darisha is there saying that she's going to be getting her ticket. She can't wait for the summit. So we want you to be in the place. So in order to make sure that everybody is able to be there, because we had lots of people telling us that they wanted alignment, right? And in order to do that, we're making this a 1 day. It's going to be all in event. So now it's on the 7th, that Saturday in June, and we cannot wait to see you there. You can go to thestrategicrest.com in order to secure your seat and your ticket, and we cannot wait to see y'all. We also can't wait to see you next Sunday, same place, same time, here at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday, right here, to ensure that you make good decisions and practice strategic rest. We'll see you. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.